Hey guys, my name is Francisco Hernandez, and today I want to show you how I retouch my images. This might be a little bit of a long video, so I'm going to just dive right into it, but I did want to let you guys know first that this is just how I personally retouch my own images. If you guys do your way of retouching different ways, then that's totally fine. I'm just going to show you my way. So let's just jump right into it. I'm going to start in Lightroom, then move into Photoshop. Before I continue, I do want to let you guys know that this video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community filled with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves to learn and wants to explore their creativity. You can invest in yourself and your personal growth with Skillshare. If you're trying to learn a specific skill, then Skillshare is the best place to start because they offer classes on so many different topics, including photography, off-camera flash, productivity, and just so many different things that you just need to go to Skillshare yourself to check out which classes best match your interests and your goals. Some great benefits of joining Skillshare is the fact that it's ad-free, so you can stay focused while you're exploring different skills. They always drop new premium classes every single week, so there's always something new to discover, and their entire catalog offers subtitles in Spanish, French, Portuguese, and German. One class that I looked into recently is called Studio Lighting for Natural Light Photographers, Getting to Grips with Strobes and Softboxes by Paul Wilkinson. He did a great job of breaking down off-camera flash in a studio setting, and this is something that I wanted to get a little bit more familiar with since I do plan to do more studio work in the summer since it's so hot here in Texas. I seriously did like how he was able to break down everything so simple. It was very easy to learn, and I hope that I can apply some of the things that I learned later on this summer. If you guys are interested in trying Skillshare out, be sure to use my link or my code Francisco Hernandez in the description area below, because the first 1,000 of you to do that will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Seriously, when you guys support the people that support my channel, it allows me to keep making free content for you guys, so definitely check out Skillshare. So the very first thing that I want to do with this image in Lightroom is to correct the exposure. It is a little bit underexposed right now. This was actually my first test shot and I really like the expression, so that's why I'm working with this image. So I'm going to go ahead and just bump up the exposure to 0.5. It does look fine now, but what I also want to do is just maybe increase the shadows a bit, let's say 40. It does look fine now, and I think even just with maybe a little bit increased blacks, it'll look pretty good. There's a lot of dynamic range now. So now I can just finish with the exposure adjustments. That's all I want to do with the image right now. And now I'm going to go ahead and do my second favorite thing, which is to increase the colors of the image. And the ways that I do that is I go all the way to the bottom in the calibration section. I'm going to go to the blue primary saturation slider and bring it up to, it's usually something like 60 to 80. In this case, I'm going to go with 80. And usually when I increase the saturation that way, it does increase the blues and the oranges a bit too much. In this case, I actually do like the oranges on the background, but I feel like it's too much on the skin. It's making them look a little bit weird. So instead of doing what I usually do, which is in the hue, saturation, luminance section, the saturation section, usually what I'll do is I'll go ahead and reduce the saturation to something like -15, and that'll correct that oversaturation of the oranges. But like I said before, I do like the oranges on the background, just not the skin. So I'm gonna leave the saturation alone. And instead, I'm going to go ahead and get the masking. It's kind of a new feature where you can select the subject in Lightroom. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to select the subject. And now with the subject selected, what I'm going to do is, since I felt like she was too orange in her skin tones, I'm going to go ahead and change the color temperature of just her. So I'm going to make it a little bit more cool. And I'm going to do that with the temp section right here. And I'm going to reduce it to maybe -8. But she didn't only just look a little bit too orange. She did also look a little too green in the skin tones. So in order to correct those greens in the skin tones, you need to add magenta. So in the tint, I'm going to go to +8. Maybe I'll go to +10. And now is where I feel like the skin tones look fine. But what I also want to do is make her just pop a little bit more. So I'm going to add just a tiny little bit of exposure. I'm going to go to the exposure section and bump it up to 0.1, or maybe actually 0.2. Yeah, 0.2 looks pretty good. She kind of has a good pop now and is more of the focus of the image. So the only thing that I want to do now is I'm going to just get out of this masking area, take one last look of the image, and just really focus on everything that's a little bit too bright, that's kind of taking away my attention from the subject. And right now what I feel like is that maybe her stomach's a little bit bright, this hand's a little bit bright, and this section on the side is definitely too bright. And maybe I'll go ahead and reduce the bottom section here on the floor. It's not too bright, but it is a little bright. So the way that I'm going to do that is with the adjustment brush, and the shortcut to that is K. So I'm going to go ahead and just paint over the areas that I feel are too bright. I'm going to do probably 2 rounds, one just for everything that's the floor and everything around her that's not her, and I'm just going to paint that really quickly. And then now I'm gonna go ahead and just reduce the highlights to maybe -25 and also reduce the whites to maybe -40. And I feel like even without adjusting the exposure, which I initially wanted to do, it looks pretty good. But let's see how it looks like with maybe -0.1. I think it actually looks pretty good, so I'm gonna leave it like that. And again, the whole purpose of doing that was just because I felt like it was too bright everywhere else, that it was just taking away the attention away from the subject. So now that I corrected that, I'm gonna now go ahead and just reduce those highlights on the stomach and on the hand. And after that, maybe I'll brighten up the eyes and then we'll be done. I have another adjustment brush. I don't have that one right here, but I have another one. So now I'm just gonna paint over just the hand and just the stomach just a little bit, and then reduce the highlights to -40, and it looks good to me now. I'm gonna get another adjustment brush, and then I'm gonna go ahead and now paint over the eyes. And I do actually have a preset for dark eyes, which I'll show you guys right now in a second, but I'm just painting over the eyes first. I'm gonna go to my dark eyes preset. And you guys can see over here, these are the settings. And actually I do want to paint just a tad bit more. And now I'm going to zoom back out. And then you guys can see this is how the image looked before, and then this is how it looks after. And I've done pretty much everything that I need to do. Maybe I'll just add a tiny little bit of red to the, or magenta to the image. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just move it to maybe 15. And now all I have to do is right click the image, go to edit in Adobe Photoshop 2022, and then I'll continue from there. Okay, so the very first thing that I like to do in Photoshop is remove distractions. And just like in Lightroom, certain exposures of the image were kind of just taking away the attention from the subject. Well, here in Photoshop, I'm literally gonna remove things that I feel are too distracting. So the way that I like to do that is I like to get a blank layer that's right here on the bottom. And then usually this layer here, I like to label it distractions. And then I'll either use the patch tool, the clone stamp tool, the spot healing brush tool, and I think those are the main ones. And I'll use those different tools to remove different things that are distracting. And if you are going to use those tools, you do need to make sure that for the clone stamp tool, it says sample current and below, or if you're using the spot healing brush tool or the patch tool, that it says sample all layers. Make sure that box is checked, otherwise you won't be doing anything. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start removing distractions, and then I'll continue. Okay, so that did take a while, and one of the main reasons why it took a while is because I didn't do what I just taught you guys in my most recent video before this one, which is how to remove a softbox in post. And the key to doing that, to making the process much simpler, is to take a second shot without the light in the way at all, and it'll be really easy to remove the light in post. And because I didn't do that in this photo, at this photo shoot, it took a while using the clone stamp tool. Definitely watch that video if you haven't seen it. I'll link it in the description and in the top right corner of the screen right now. But let's go ahead and just move on. I'm gonna merge these two layers real quickly, call it distractions, and then we can start with frequency separation. There are a lot of different ways and reasons to use frequency separation. I am just going to show you guys my way of using it, which is to just soften up rough areas of the skin or to remove wrinkles in clothing. So I will show you guys how to make the frequency separation folder, and then we can continue. The very first thing that you're going to do right now is just hit Command or Control Alt Shift E. It's a bit of a complicated shortcut, so I'm going to click that Control Alt Shift E. Since I am using a PC, it's going to make a whole copy of everything that's on the screen right now. I'm going to hit Command or Control J. On my PC, that's going to be Control J. It's going to make a copy, and then I'm going to rename the bottom one low, the top one is going to be high. And basically with frequency separation, it's just dividing the image into texture and color for different reasons. And there's a lot of science behind it, but it's going to be helpful in doing what I said before, which is making the skin softer in certain areas or reducing the wrinkles in clothing. I'm going to click the bottom one low, and I'm going to hold down Shift and click the top one, and then it's going to highlight both of them. Then you're going to hit Control or Command J or G, sorry about that. And then you're going to rename it FS. And then now I'm going to go ahead and just click on low, go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm going to click on her face. With Gaussian blur, you definitely don't want too much blur, kind of aim for that little bit of blur there. I'm going to hit OK, and then now I'm going to go ahead and click on the high layer, and then go to image, apply image, make sure that this layer section up here where it says merged, change it to low, and then change the blending mode to subtract. And I know it's probably going over you guys' heads right now, but it's just the way that this frequency separation works and how you make it. So let's go ahead and just change the blending mode from this high layer to linear light. And now it is divided the image into texture and color. And I'm just gonna worry about the color section because that's how I reduce the wrinkles and reduce the roughness of the skin. So let's go ahead and keep this low layer selected. And now I'm gonna zoom in on the skin. And now I'm gonna go ahead and hit L, which is the lasso tool. And I'm gonna make sure the feather is around 4 to 6. Right now I have it on 6. And I'm just gonna kind of just select certain areas of the skin. You don't want to select certain areas that are very different colors. So I wouldn't want to select this dark hair with this different color skin. So I'm just kind of just keeping the areas that I selected away from other different colors, like the dark eyebrows or dark hair. And now what I'm gonna do is go to filter, go to blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm gonna increase the radius of the blur to 6. And what it's gonna do is basically just soften up the skin in certain areas. So I'm gonna apply this to different areas of the skin. Let's say underneath the eye bags and the cheek here. I'm gonna go to filter and then tap on Gaussian blur. It's gonna apply the same amount of blur. And then I'm gonna do that to different areas, just to kind of soften different areas of the skin. And it'll help in reducing the amount of work that we're gonna do with dodge and burn. Sometimes when I am applying this different lasso tool and softening different areas of the skin, sometimes what I'll encounter is if I'm selecting something like the stomach here and I try to reduce or actually soften up the skin here and I apply the same amount of blur, sometimes it'll look weird, it'll look funky like this, and it doesn't look too realistic to me. So one other way that I can soften up the skin is using the mixer brush. So I'm gonna deselect that, and the mixer brush, again, it's a complicated tool, but what you can do is just go to the mixer brush. It's the brush tool. You hold down, click on it, and then go to mixer brush, and then copy the settings that are on here. And then what you can do now is just kind of just brush different areas of the skin tone into different areas of the skin. So you do want to make sure that you're not using this too crazy. So usually what I'll do is soft brushes and keeping within the certain skin tones. I don't want to brush this skin tone onto the dark shirt. So make sure you're avoiding that. I'm hitting Control Z now. And then that'll kind of just easen up the skin, make it very nice and soft without, you know, being too complicated of a process. So I'm just gonna keep doing this for a little bit, and then I'm gonna go ahead and just continue on with the dodge and burn part. And right now I think I actually did paint over some of the jeans here. So yeah, I did paint over some of the jeans here. And let's say for example, I did paint over into the dark shirt, and I use this tool, the mixer brush, a little bit too much more. So what you can do if you run into that issue is just highlight the folder, add a mask to it, and then make sure that you're painting black to hide this, and then you can continue. So I'm gonna go ahead and just make sure that I'm painting the right color, black, and then see, I'm just removing it from the shirt where I messed up and a little bit on the jeans. That's just something you can do just in case you did paint over certain areas that you didn't intend to paint over. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom out now. Now that I take one last look, everything looks good, and now I can move into the dodge and burn section of this tutorial. With dodge and burn, all you need to do is add 2 curves adjustment layers. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Over here in the bottom, go to this little circle and then go to curves, and then bring up this little thing, this line from here, 1 level up to this section, and then hit Control I or Command I. And then usually I'll name it dodge. And then what I'm going to do right now is just do the exact same thing, but change it to 1 level lower. With dodge and burn, there's actually 2 different versions of dodge and burn. There's called local dodge and burn. That just means zooming in and doing different, or dodging and burning different areas of the skin, and then zooming out like I am right now, and just dodging and burning everything from a zoomed out perspective. So I am going to start with global dodge and burn, zoomed out, and then I'll move closer in, zoomed in, with local dodge and burn. So just to be lazy like I am right now, I'm going to go ahead and just highlight dodge, hold down shift, and then click on burn, and then hit Command or Control J, and it's going to make that second round for the local dodge and burn. Usually with dodge, I'll aim to kind of brighten up or make sure that you actually have the right tool. I'm going to have the brush tool painting white. Now I'm painting the correct color, and I am going to change the size of the brush depending on the different areas that I'm actually dodging or burning. So right now I do have the flow way too high because otherwise it's going to be very, very bright, and I actually do have the hardness way too hard. You want it to be very, very soft, and you want to make sure that the flow is something very low. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's at maybe something like 2%. With dodge and burn, usually I'll aim to dodge the center of a limb and then darken the outside of that limb. And that will just give it a lot more depth to whatever, to whatever you're painting on, whether it be a person or something else. So right now I'm going to go ahead and just do that. I'm going to go ahead and just dodge the center of the leg here, and you do want to make sure that you're not going too overboard, but I'm going to go ahead and just dodge the center, and then I'm going to go ahead and just burn the outer part of the leg. and also the arms too. And now I'm gonna go ahead and just start burning everything. And again, I do want to aim to burn kind of the edges of the limbs. So here's everything that I burned. I'm gonna take it off and put it back on. And then to show you guys the results of both of the dodge and the burn, I'm gonna go ahead and just hide them. This is before, and then this is after. And it is very fast and very quick. Usually I'll take my time with this, but I'm just trying to speed everything up for the sake of this tutorial. And now what I did actually forget is actually to show you with frequency separation to remove the wrinkles. When I was previously editing this photo, I saw that this area right here is wrinkled, and I went ahead and just painted. I kind of keep in line with where the shadow's falling, so I'm gonna go ahead and just go like this, and then it'll go ahead and just reduce the wrinkle there. Again, you're just kind of painting in line where the shadow is going to fall and painting over the wrinkled area. I'm going to go ahead and just repeat this, and then basically what it's doing is just removing that wrinkles. And I just wanted to show you guys that real quick because I did forget to mention that. But I'm again just going to zoom back out, show you guys the wrinkle real quick before and after. And then now what I'm going to do is just continue with the local dodge and burn, and then after that mess around with the colors and we'll be done. So with local dodge and burn, what's really helpful to really see the imperfections of the skin that you're going to correct, you can go to the bottom and go to the adjustment layers again, the circle, and then go to black and white, and it's going to add a black and white adjustment layer. And then when you lower the yellows and the reds, it really brings out the imperfections of the skin, so you can kind of just focus and see them better to remove them. So the way that we're going to remove them is again with dodge and burn. So let's say for example, if I wanted to go ahead and just make this dark area underneath the eye, remove it. Well, since it is a dark section of the skin, now I'm going to go ahead and go to the dodge layer, make sure that I am painting with the brush tool. And again, you want to change the flow to 1% now for the skin for local dodge and burn. Make sure the hardness is at 0. I'm right clicking to get to this section here. And then now I'm going to go ahead and just make sure I'm painting the right color, which is white, and then just paint over that dark section there. It is going to be kind of rapid sometimes, but right now I already did my, what I wanted to do, which is remove that dark area on the skin. So let's go ahead and just see what I did. So there's the before and here is the after. And basically that's all we're going to do. We're going to repeat that same process to any area on the skin. Right now I feel like this area of the nose is a little dark, so I might brighten it. I feel like this area on the forehead's a little too dark, so I might brighten that. And again, it's just a process of repeating that same thing. And I'm gonna go ahead and just fast forward through this section. But if you guys have any questions about the dodge and burn process, let me know in the comment section below and I'll help you as soon as possible. Okay, so I just finished the dodge and burn, and what I'm gonna do right now is just show you guys the before and after. So here is the before and here is the after, and that's pretty much everything that I can do to the skin. Now I'm gonna just zoom back out, and now we can just start messing around with the color. And just like the other methods that I went over today, we're gonna go again to the bottom circle, go to selective color here on the bottom. And now usually what I'll do is I'll rotate between the different colors, red, yellow, all these different ones here. But reds and yellows are probably the one that I use the most. And I honestly just have fun with it. I just change the cyans and the magentas, the yellows and blacks, and then I just see what looks good. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do right now, and just see what looks good. Usually what I'll do is I'll do 2 rounds of selective color. I'll do one where I'm just adjusting the colors of the background, and it will look like I'm adjusting everything including the skin tones, and then I'll just paint it off, and then I'll just focus on the skin tones in the next round, and then I'll go ahead and just change the skin tones with the same tool, the selective color tool. But right now I'm gonna go ahead and just play around and then show you guys what I came up with. So here is what I came up with the red section. Now I'm gonna go ahead and go to yellows. Here's what I came up with the yellows, and now I'm gonna finally move into the blues, which is gonna be her jeans. And here is how the blues look like after I adjusted these different sliders. I honestly felt like it looked really nice with this muted tones of blue. And again, like I mentioned before, I usually do 2 different rounds of selective color. But right now, when I was adjusting the yellows and the reds, it didn't make the skin tones look too weird. So I'm just gonna be done with this image already. That's everything, I'm gonna show you guys the before and after. Here's the before, here's the after. A lot more interesting colors in the background. That's pretty much everything that I do when I retouch a photo. I do the distractions, frequency separation, dodge and burn, and then I adjust the colors. So hopefully this tutorial wasn't too complicated and it wasn't too long, but hopefully it does help you guys out. And if you have any questions whatsoever at all, let me know in the comments and I'll help you guys as soon as possible. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the very next video.